So, today, we're going to decode one of the biggest side effects of the recent global crisis, the infodemic. It was this overwhelming flood of information that, let's be honest, hit all of us. We're going to break down how it worked and what we can learn from it.
I mean, just try to remember that time, those first few weeks. Every single notification, every news report, every post from a friend, it all felt so urgent, didn't it? It was like trying to drink from a fire hose, and it was pretty much impossible to know what to believe or who to trust.
And you know what? There's actually a name for that feeling, that sense of being completely swamped by information during a crisis. It's called an infodemic. And it's not just about too much information, it's that toxic mix of good and bad info that makes finding the truth feel almost impossible.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the pandemic infodemic itself. Then we'll see how researchers actually decoded all that chaos. We'll break down the specific categories of information they found, and finally, we'll dive into the really powerful and kind of scary effect of conspiracy theories. And this overload of information, it had a huge impact. The source material for this calls it an artificial panic, and it really pushed people into one of two corners. Either you were completely over-anxious, where every single piece of news was terrifying, or you became totally indifferent, dangerously underestimating the whole thing.
So how in the world do we even begin to make sense of all that noise now that we have some distance? Well, researchers have been hard at work analyzing what was actually being broadcast to us. And what they found gives us this incredible framework for understanding not just what happened, but how we can all be smarter about the media we consume next time.
To help us do that, we're going to lean on some serious research. We're pulling directly from a really fascinating study that was published in Critical Studies in Social Sciences and Humanities. It takes this giant, messy, real-world problem and puts it under a microscope to give us some much-needed clarity.
Okay, so what did these researchers actually do? Well, they zeroed in on TV talk shows from two major news channels in Turkey right during that critical early phase of the pandemic. They meticulously went through 25 of these programs that have been uploaded to YouTube to see exactly what was being discussed, and maybe more importantly, how it was being discussed.
All right, so after all that digging, what did they actually find? Well, it turns out the information we were getting wasn't just some random mess. They were actually able to sort it all into these really distinct categories. Some of them were helpful, and some, well, not so much.
First up, let's talk about the good stuff. Valid information. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's factual, it's backed by evidence. A perfect example from the study is that simple, clear, effective message that washing your hands helps protect you from the virus. This is the kind of info that actually helps people.
Then, you've got what they called comforting information. Now, this stuff wasn't necessarily about hard science, but it was all about managing our emotional state. You know, the jokes, the memes, those lighthearted animations, their whole purpose was just to dial down that intense fear and anxiety that pretty much everyone was feeling. And yeah, the study found a couple more categories too. There was shocking information, content designed to just horrify you. Think of those startling statistics or really dramatic stories. And then on the other side, there was progressive information, which was all about innovation and new developments, like potential treatments or scientific breakthroughs. But as the researchers kept sifting through all this content, they found that some of the most common types of information being broadcast were also the most dangerous.
And this is where we have to get really clear on two words we hear all the time: misinformation versus disinformation. They are not the same thing. Misinformation is false, but it's spread by accident. Think of your aunt sharing a post about a home remedy because she genuinely thinks it'll help. Disinformation, though, that's malicious. It's lies that are created and spread on purpose to deceive people and cause harm.
And that distinction is absolutely key, because it brings us to what might be the study's most alarming finding: the widespread and incredibly powerful effect of deliberate disinformation, especially when it's packaged up as a conspiracy theory.
I mean, check out this quote from the study. It really hits the nail on the head. The researchers saw that even when other experts on these very same shows were actively refuting these wild claims, it just didn't matter. The programs that featured the conspiracy theories were always the most popular. So what kind of stuff are we talking about? Well, a big one, a really common one they found, was this claim that the virus didn't just happen naturally, but that it was a man-made biological weapon. And this narrative was pushed with all sorts of evidence, pointing to things like global currency changes or even plot lines from Hollywood movies. So, just how common was this?
You might be surprised. The researchers identified 89 distinct instances of misinformation spread across just the programs they analyzed. This wasn't some rare thing. It was a constant, steady drumbeat in the media.
And here it is, the single most startling, most incredible finding from the entire study. The programs that were all in on conspiracy theories were by far the most watched of them all. They got more views than shows with valid health advice, more views than shows with comforting messages. The conspiracies won the attention war.
Okay, so why should you care about a study of Turkish TV shows? Because this wasn't just about one country. This is a global pattern. What the study gives all of us is a toolkit. By understanding these categories, valid, comforting, and especially misinformation, we can start to be more critical about the news we see during any crisis. And realizing just how powerful the appeal of a sensational, conspiratorial story is, that's the absolute first step in learning how to fight back against it.
And that really leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? In a world where anyone can broadcast anything to millions of people in an instant, what is our personal responsibility? Are we just spreading more noise, or are we making a conscious choice to amplify the truth?